Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. Let me say up front, man, I'm hurt. I can't even pretend that I'm not. So, after my review of Dragon Age of Veilguard came out, I had a lot of comments, a lot of people reaching out saying you really need to look at the concept art for this game because the new concept art came out with the art book that I guess was a part of maybe the collector's edition of the game, and it revealed a lot of what Dragon Age 4 was originally supposed to be, which is markedly different from the game that we got. And so I heard those comments and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll get around to it. But I wasn't really in a rush. And finally, today I took a look at it and it's brutal. Absolutely brutal how much better the game is that's represented in the concept art compared to the game that we actually got. I am just astounded that they saw those images and that information and then still came to the final product that we received. And let me say up front, for those who might be new to the channel, for those who aren't here, for those who didn't look at my review, I'll leave a link down below. Like, I'm not one of those people who has been trashing this game. I'm not one of those people who have been saying it's an unmitigated disaster, BioWare is about to fail, blah, blah, blah. I don't believe any of that. I think BioWare is going to be just fine. I think we're going to get another Dragon Age game, much to the dismay of some people, but I do not believe that we have reached the end of the series, to be completely frank. So I'm not with the mob at all, but we got to be able to call a spade a spade. And if you're going to do that, it's just hard to look at what could have been and not say that it's significantly better. And to be honest with you, to be clear, before we get into some of these images, what I find really disturbing about this is, part of the mindset that I approached the review with is it was unfair to try to believe that BioWare could make a David Gator style Dragon Age, which me personally is, I know those games weren't perfect, but it's absolutely consistent with the identity of the series, right? But I'm like, David Gator's not there. So it's not fair for you to look at it in that manner. You've got to review this game in a different way. And I understand concept art is not the same as dialogue. It's not the same as story. It's not the same thing as having everything written out. But the concept art makes it clear that the skeleton of what David Gator would have done was already in place. That you had a storyline, really acts 1, 2, and 3, of what to do, and all you had to do was essentially fill that out. Like, I'm not going to go through all of the concept art here because, again, this is not this is not a happy video for me. I'm a real Dragon Age fan. I love this series, and so to me it kind of hurts to feel like it has been mismanaged on some level, but I will leave a link below with a person who did a 40-minute video really combing through all of the concept art available in the art book, and it looks like acts 1, 2, and 3. It looks like a full game basically mapped out that is almost completely different from what we got in the end, and that just hurts. It hurts, it's disappointing, and again, I feel like what we see in the concept art is vastly better than what we got in multiple different ways. So let's get into it. So let's start with Matt Rhodes, who was an artist for Dragon Age Inquisition and also helped do some of the work for what would have been Dragon Age 4. I'm not sure if he's still with BioWare, but he was kind enough to drop some of the art that he had done. First and foremost, this is a fully colored in version of the ending scene from Inquisition after Trespasser, where you see the elves leaving because they're going to join Solus. And I specifically referenced this scene in my review and said, where are the elves? Where's the army that's supposed to be following Solas and assisting Solas because they're sick and tired of being enslaved and abused and harassed? Where is this whole storyline? Veilguard just threw it all away, and it becomes clear when you look at more of this that storyline was actually supposed to be central to the Dragon Age 4 storyline. Here you have Solas the way he should have been. The way Solas should have been. I stand by what I said in regards to the ending of Veilguard, that I felt like they did an amazing job wrapping up his arc, and that for the one storyline or one layer of Solas's arc that they decided to do, they did a beautiful job of carrying that out. But again, as I said in the review, there are major layers from his arc, from his storyline, from what he's trying to do that are missing from the game. And a big part of it is the elves are being abused across Thedas. And they should be siding with Solas because they are like, we're tired of it. We're tired of it. We're not going to tolerate this anymore. And we don't care if the whole world has to burn in order for us to be free. And this concept art absolutely showcases that, with him at the head of a major army that are all willing to fight against and turn against you in order to protect Solas's vision. This is 100% the game we should have got it. 100%. There's another piece of concept art where it basically showcases Solas bringing up one of the Titans right under Minrathous. It appears, based on the concept art, that the Titans were going to be a much bigger part of the story originally, and in fact you would have an ending option that might potentially have even allowed you to restore the Titans to some degree, and that instead of the way it is in the books, or rather in the game, where you find the wolf statues and it brings up portraits and you just hear people talking to go through Solas's backstory. Instead, you were going to experience it through dreams, which would have been amazing, similar to the dream sequence we had in Inquisition. Just all the way around, it sounds so much superior to what we actually got. But that's only the tip of the iceberg, because it was only one part of the concept art Matt chose to release. This one shows the Divine directly as a part of Dragon Age 4, declaring an exalted march upon the north to find Solas and bring him back, which is 100% an aspect of the lore that should have been a part of Veilguard. How do you take a game that is now centered into Venter, where in the last game we were directly a part of choosing the new Divine, and then say, well, she has no part in this story? Nothing that she does, nothing going on with her actually matters for what's happening in the game. Makes zero sense. Absolutely zero sense. We 100% should have had Cassandra or Leliana or even Vivian in the game as the Divine. And I said in my review, to have a Dragon Age game that doesn't have Leliana is just, it's just messed up. It's just messed up. It's not right. And to be honest, obviously she's not quite on the same level, but it felt wrong for Cassandra not to be there. Even if she's not the Divine, she's the head of the Seekers. She's somebody of importance. There's just no way that, why would you just exclude her wholeheartedly and only bring in the Inquisitor, and basically only bring in the Inquisitor as a politician, as someone who doesn't even directly participate in what's happening in the game? It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And what's being showcased here is so superior to what we ended up getting. And this just reinforces that. Another thing that I said in my review, there is way too little Inquisitor content. You don't get anything like this. Basically, it's coffee breaks. You sit with her at a table, or you stand up in a little coffee shop and y'all talk shop for a couple of minutes, and then that's it. They never showcase the Inquisitor as a person of power, as a person of like real authority. Something what you had about to it. It's not right. It's not right. And the way this scene is showcased just makes her look so much better than what we ever see in the actual game. I don't understand why. I don't understand why. And don't even get me started on this, man. So here you have a Teventer Magister, a Chastened Mage, and a member of the Ben Hassereth, basically combining their forces together to try to figure out how to stand against you. I don't know why a Qunari would be willing to work with a member of Teventer, but just look at the way he looks, man. He looks so much better than any of the Qunari we get in Veilguard. Why? Why? And as far as I know, we don't meet any members of the Chastened whatsoever. I don't even remember hearing about them. But even beyond that, again, the Qunari, because I mentioned in my review, I feel like Veilguard does the Qunari really, really bogus. And this is perfect. This is exactly the way that they're supposed to look. You could have just photoshopped this guy and put him directly into the game, and he would have been superior to any of the Qunari that we came across. As far as from a visual standpoint, I don't understand. I just don't understand. This upsets me as well. Yet another thing I mentioned in my review, there is virtually no dwarf content. Dwarves are non-existent outside of Harding's Quest, and you only meet a couple of them in Harding's Quest. Apparently, originally, Kyle Sharrock was supposed to be a faction in and of itself, which actually makes 100% sense, because something that was irritating me and confusing me my entire playthrough is, why do I keep getting so many of these dwarven items in order to use at merchants when I don't have a dwarf faction who's supposed to make use of them? But now to me, it's clear. Originally, Kyle Sharrock was going to be a full all-out faction. For whatever reason, BioWare took them out. And then when they took them out, they never took out the items. They never replaced the items with ones from other factions that actually existed. Like, that's wild to me. I spent the whole game wondering, what am I supposed to be saving these dwarven artifacts? It's so wild to me, man. This concept art shows dwarves fleeing their Tig because the Darkspawn are going absolutely ballistic and overrunning their homes, and so they have no choice but to flee to the surface. And anybody who's familiar with Dragon Age lore knows how big a deal that is. Dwarves are not supposed to come up to the surface. There's a whole caste system that separates surface dwarves from true dwarves who stay close to the stone. So massive amounts of dwarves being forced to flee their homes and come up to the surface is a big, big deal. That would have been amazing to see and explore in the game, especially with dwarven party members in your crew. I don't understand why they would just cut out all of this content. So that's the concept art that Matt put out on Twitter, but then there's the art that's actually in the book. And one of the things that it revealed is originally Morgan and to a greater degree Isabella and Dorian were supposed to have a much greater role in your playthrough. They were supposed to be advisors for you, similar to the role that Cullen and Cassandra and Leliana played for you in Inquisition, which would have been vastly better than how these characters were used in the actual game. Morgan was used pretty well. Her dialogue, for the most part, I felt it was good. I was obviously very upset that we couldn't transfer or import our choices from previous games. So she didn't feel accurate based on, you know, the way she should have interacted with, or the way, or the type of history that she should have had. But if you take that part out, the actual dialogue and the way she was represented was good. Isabella was terrible. terrible. There wasn't nearly enough content put in for her. Everything was basically told through Tasha's quest, Tasha's eyes. Her outfit was awful, absolutely awful. This is a way better look for her. And of course, there's been a ton of content about the fact that you couldn't really change your chest or your butt at all in character creation. And so all the NPCs basically had these stick figure bodies, which really did not fit Isabella. So the fact that she doesn't look that way here instantly makes her significantly better as well. I was very disappointed with Dorian's interpretation as well. Thought he was an amazing character in Inquisition. Poorly done, both from a visual standpoint in Veilguard and from his content. Like, even the final decision you had to make, I had to side against Dorian because I'm like, bro, you're not even making sense right now. And it was just disappointing all the way around the way he was represented. Great to hear his voice again, but absolutely what was talked about here would have been so much better. Another thing that I talked about in the review, we do not get to see real Tevinter. We do not get to see the magisterium, the rich magisters, the people who are actually running things. How do they live? The slaves that are supposed to be serving them throughout the damn city. We get no viewpoint into that whatsoever. We stay always in the poor sections of Tevinter. The rich and popular almost we don't see them like walking around amongst the poor the way it's supposed to be. And this is a portion, a part of Tevinter that is never showcased in the game. Luxury, slavery. Like I am poor, I am destitute, I am essentially forced into servitude, and I have to watch everybody else eat whatever they want, drink whatever they want, do whatever they want, day in, day out, simply because I am not capable of using magic. This is the Tevinter we should have been able to see, and it never comes up. It never, ever comes up. Originally, you were supposed to actually go to Ravani, and it was going to be a trading post. It was going to be the main place where you could buy and sell goods. Again, I feel like this is vastly superior to what we got because we never actually went to the city. Instead, what they call Ravani is really just going to the coast, and you run around a lot on the sand and you see the beach and all that, but you don't actually visit any cities or populated areas. You can go to a tournament area where the only person you really interface with is Isabella, and the only thing she says is, oh, you ready for another fight? Oh, okay, here, go to another fight. That's it. We don't really get to delve in and experience Ravani culture, and it's unfortunate. That apparently was not the way it was originally supposed to be. Not only was it important to visit Ravani from a economic standpoint, but also it was supposed to have a very broad mix of different cultures, which is going to contrast severely with the Qunari, who were very rigid. And hey, this is the way it has to be. There's one way that you could be here, point blank period, which would have been fantastic for Tosh. I think it would have done so much to help flesh out their arc if you could have highlighted that contrast more. But unfortunately, there wasn't the content in the game to be able to do that for them. Circling back to Solus, we already saw this scene here, but at the top, you see the way it looks in front. And again, it's just superior, man. It's just a superior showcase of how he's supposed to be, leading an army of the elves who are determined to fight for their freedom, who are determined to fight for a return to the way things are supposed to be. This is the story. This is the contrast, right? If you're gonna have, I absolutely agree with the people who were telling me up and down in the whole lead up to Veilguard when I was screaming Solus is right. They were saying, hey, tearing down the veil is such an evil choice. It's basically genocide. How can you side with that? It's a conversation. I absolutely get it. But to make it so one-sided and to say, hey, there is no other side, and to just basically not have any of the elven conflict in the game is such a betrayal to the lore, man. It's baffling they decided to go that route. And then here at the bottom, another amazing thing they decided to leave out. Of course, every Dragon Age game has a sequence where your character gets stranded in the Fade. Well, originally in Dragon Age 4, when you get stranded in the Fade, you are then helped by whichever character you left in the Fade during Dragon Age Inquisition. So basically, that would be Hawk, Alistair, Loghain, or Stroud, I think, are the 4 different characters that could potentially be left in that situation. And man, again, so much better than what we got. Although the Fade sequence in the game was amazing. 100% one of the highlights of the whole entire game. I felt like they handled that masterfully, but it still would have been improved if Alistair showed up. Or for my game, it would have been Loghain. In my playthrough, Loghain was the one who made the ultimate sacrifice. Would have been amazing. Amazing. And then the last concept art I'll show is some of the different options for your party members. So obviously, Harding was going to be a part of the party for quite some time. I don't feel like the art here is like drastically better than what we got for her. I feel like her dialogue is really the problem, not her look. Tosh looks better. Tosh looks way, way better. And honestly, I feel like this concept art here, you know, of course, you don't know the dialogue that's being spoken, but this just looks like a person who is way more confident, way more sure of themselves. So by all means, make them non-binary, no problem. But make it like, no, I stand on this. This is who I am. Exactly the same way I said in my review. This person looks like a full adult. They look like a full adult, and let's just keep it a band. They look hot. They look hot. If Tosh had looked like this, I would have romanced them over Nev, no question. Even if the dialogue was just as corny, I wouldn't have regretted it. Whatever. Like this, I don't understand why this is way better than what we got. M-Shale, who some of you might remember from Dragon Age Inquisition, one of the Forgotten Ones, absolutely from a lore standpoint, would have been amazing having them in the game. I don't know if M-Shale is considered a he. I think they basically switch back and forth, so I think it would be considered a they. But yeah, would have been amazing having one of the Forgotten Ones on the crew, giving more perspective on some of the lore and the things that we came in contact with. We could have had an Antivan Crow Dreamer, which I'm good with Lucanus from a visual design standpoint and from a voice standpoint. I feel like it works really well. The whole concept of him being, him having a demon is terrible. It's handled terribly. They do a horrible job of explaining why something that's so far outside the lore actually makes sense. The concept of instead having an Antivan Crow Dreamer who puts tattoos on herself in order to remember who she is when she wakes up would have been vastly superior. Vastly superior to what we had. I've been fine if you just took that same character concept and just made her male, gave it a name Lucanus, that's fine. But an Antivan Crow Dreamer is way better than a man who's not a mage, who somehow still is becoming an abomination, and they use blood magic to do it, and it never really makes sense. No, I'm not with it. I'm not with it. They considered giving you a Cerebos as a companion, which is incredible. I would have absolutely loved that, loved to know what that dialogue and those stories would have been like. And in fact, in the lore right here, I don't think you can see it. I'll put up a separate picture. They actually have a representation of a Qunari companion who's evolved from a Cerebas to like a dapper Qunari spy. Again, amazing concept. Would have been really, really cool seeing what it was like having some of these people in our party. And that's not even to mention Calpurnia, who of course was in Dragon Age Inquisition. They apparently were going to have her as a party member as well, which is amazing. And what you can clearly see from what I've talked about before is that originally there was going to be a much greater focus on considering the things that you have done in the previous games, which is a hallmark of the Dragon Age series. It is. I understand they don't do it as well as Mass Effect, but the world is what truly makes Dragon Age, not the combat. Not the combat. Some of y'all in the comments talking about, I disagree. Dragon Age has a identity as far as combat. No, it doesn't. No, it does not. Dragon Age 2 combat is not basically the same as Origins. No, it's not. It's not. And Inquisition for damn sure is not like Origins. The people who love Inquisition, who started with Inquisition, a lot of them feel like Origins isn't even playable. They can't even approach the experience because they're like, this combat is whack. I'm used to what Inquisition is like. This is completely different. Dragon Age does not have an identity in its combat. The identity is in the world and in the game, respecting the choices and the things that you have done in that world. And it really, really looks like Dragon Age 4 originally was supposed to take all of that into account. And that's not the game that we received. It's not at all. And that is painful. Painful. Especially if, again, I don't think it's the case, but especially if it turns out Veilguard is the very last Dragon Age game that we ever get. So unfortunate. So unfortunate, man. All of which is to say, bottom line, David Gator needs to get back to making fantasy RPGs. That's what all this says to me. All right, Gator, I'm gonna play the musical game you came out with. I already bought it. I support you. I support everything your company does, but you need to be going back to making fantasy RPGs, man, because you do it better than like 90% of the people out here. Casey Hudson stuff just went belly up. That's so unfortunate. I'm sorry for him. All them people need to come over to your studio. Y'all need to collaborate together and make a fantasy game that has some sci-fi elements. So, you know, they'll also be satisfied and feel like they're part of the team. And then y'all just need to make a new RPG epic that has the incredible lore that you are known for, because we're not getting it otherwise. This is so unfortunate. So disappointing. Anyway, that's it. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I told you all, I'll put a link down below. There's a 40-minute video that walks through all of the concept art. Some of it is amazing. There's a picture with Gillenane dragging Cunari behind her that is incredible. There's another picture of Magisters walking through Taventer with poverty everywhere around them. Again, amazing. Like, the concept art shows off Dragon Age properly. I don't understand why all that was just thrown to the side. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed the video. I'll see y'all next one. Take care.